Hello, and welcome back to the Product-Led Festival. A big thank you to our partners and speakers for helping us feature amazing content over the 3 days, looking at the core building blocks of product-led growth, from discovery and experimentation to metrics and measurement and everything in between. A quick reminder to join our Slack channel to interact with other attendees and join selected speakers for Q&A. You can find the link in the menu at the top of this page. Enjoy the festival.
Hi, this is Clement. I'm really excited to be sharing with you today how to pilot your new product to attain product market fit. So right before we jump in, just wanted to go ahead and first give a quick preview of where we're headed. First, I'll just talk a little bit about myself, just to give you some context about the types of information I'm going to be sharing. Then from there, I want to talk a little bit about product market fit. Why is it important for product managers, and how do you use that to drive growth? Then I want to go ahead and dive into what a pilot is and how product managers can use those. And then basically, at the end, discuss how to use pilots to drive product market fit in a way being able to drive product-led growth by really understanding what market you're targeting. So just to dive in, again, I'm Clement. I used to be an analytics consultant. Then I became a product analyst, and now I'm a product manager at Blend. And I'm also a writer at Product Manager HQ. Feel free to find my work whenever on LinkedIn. And just for the folks out there who are currently looking to break into product management, I actually just published a book. So feel free to go ahead and take a look at that. But let's just go ahead and dive right in. So what is product market fit? Well, really, what product market fit is it's a lot more on the market side than it is on the product side. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, when there's product market fit, the market is basically trying to tear the product out of your hands. You have customers, you have prospects who are all really hurting, who have this really deep pain, and they really need something from you, and they're basically pulling all of the product out of your hands. And so a real example, so at the time of this recording, we're currently going through the COVID-19 pandemic. And one of the really core pains that people have today is, wow, I'm stuck at home and I don't really have anything to do. I need a way to entertain myself. And so people have this really deep pain of needing to self-entertain. And now they're basically ripping, Nintendo Switches kind of out of all of the manufacturing supply chains of, oh my gosh, I really need a Nintendo Switch, just because, that is a way for people to entertain themselves, hang out with friends remotely, right? And so previously, the Nintendo Switch had some amount of sales, but now, due to changes in the market, due to this new deep pain, people are now reaching out to get as many, to be able to get that solution to solve their pain. And so this can be this is really relevant in the world of product management as well, where you really want to be in a place where your customers and your prospects are basically begging you to ship them solutions, right? And why is that important? The thing is, when we think about products, one of the really interesting things is to consider how a product and a market fit together, right? So just to talk through a quick framework, say you have, a really great market, kind of represented on the bottom row, or you have a market that just doesn't really care about what you're doing, right? Which is represented by that top row. And then on the product side, say you have a really atrocious product that no one, really finds all that valuable, or you have a really amazing product, something that you've put a lot of love and care into that really addresses a deep need, right? When you look at these two factors combined, one of the most interesting things is that the market is the key determinant of success, right? So in a fantastic market, of course, if you have a fantastic product, you're going to have outsized success, right? So think Slack, think Salesforce, think Zoom, right? But if you're in a really great market and you have a terrible product, you're still going to actually do pretty well, right? And so, for example, there are a lot of folks who are going out to buy, toilet paper that is not particularly a brand name, right? Like those products aren't very good, but because there's such a huge need for toilet paper right now, it is a really easy win right now, right? And kind of on the flip side, if you have a really terrible market, it really almost doesn't matter how good your product is. You're always going to be fighting an uphill battle, right? And of course, if you have a terrible product, you're probably going to shut down very quickly. And so I think one of the things to consider is that product managers are always evaluated by their product metrics, right? What impact did you as a product manager drive? And the thing is, as we just discussed, markets actually have an outsized influence on how your product performs. And so I think a lot of times people usually think of product managers as, oh, they're the person who works with design and engineering to go build out a solution, right? And that is very true. That is some of the job that we do. But one of the even more important things for us to do is to actually go pick a winning market, right? Because again, just jumping back a single slide, if you build a really great product in a really terrible market, you're doing your entire team a disservice. And you don't necessarily have to build the most gorgeous product in the world if you happen to find a really amazing market. So as a product manager, if you want your organization to succeed, if you want to succeed, you really need to understand, well, how am I going to find a winning market? How do I go ahead and take my product and iterate towards a market that demands my product, right? I don't want to be out there, cold pitching people and having people hang up on me. What I really want is I want people banging on my door saying, Clement, I really need your product right now. Tell me what you got, right? And so the way to do that is through a pilot. So traditionally speaking, most product managers, when we think about, oh, I'm going to be building out functionality or I'm going to be delivering something, we typically think about serving, thousands or millions of customers with some sort of mass adoption feature, right? We typically think of, how do I ship incremental functionality on top of the product suite that I already have? And that works if you already have a proven market. But let's say you don't have a proven market, right? Well, a pilot is basically the exact reverse. So rather than you trying to go build for the market, because you don't know what the market is yet, you're actually just going to go build for a single customer, right? The thing is, if you know how to build for a single customer and you know how to go ahead and scale that up to more and more and more customers, eventually you can win the entire market, right? And so that is what a product pilot is. You're trying to focus on getting a single customer to achieve wild success on your product, right? Basically, a product pilot it's an experiment. You're trying to figure out, what is it that I'm supposed to build? What is the need that I'm trying to address? What's the market that I'm trying to attack? And you can do that through a pilot, right? And so a product pilot can be a pretty different way of thinking for a lot of product managers, right? Most of the time we're thinking, okay, we have A/B testing, we know how to optimize things, or hey, we have all of these support cases coming in, there's clearly a pain here, let's go build on top. Building a product pilot can feel a little tricky if you've never done it before. And so I want to go ahead and dive in a little bit deeper on what is a product pilot. So the thing is, a product pilot is basically you are taking your product and you're putting it in front of a single customer. And this is typically really relevant for business to business products, enterprise products. And why is that? Well, you need to actually build a truly fully functioning product, something that actually delivers a solution end to end, to be able to address some pain for a business. Because the thing is, a business isn't the same thing as a consumer. A business is this large organization that's trying to maintain its employees, it's trying to grow revenue, as all of these objectives. They don't really have the time to go take your survey, or they don't really have the time to go look at your mock or your prototype. And even if they look at it, they don't necessarily understand, well, wait, how would I actually use this in my day-to-day operations, right? The thing is, businesses, unlike consumers, businesses don't adopt products based off of virality. They actually adopt products based on evidence. What do I mean by that? I mean, they're looking for case studies, white papers. They're trying to understand who else has succeeded on this product before so that I can take that risk of trying your new product. Because the thing is, when a business adopts a new product, it's really dangerous for them, right? They are taking away a lot of their current bandwidth, their current operations and productivity and bandwidth to go try your new thing. And so it's very difficult for them to just have someone say word of mouth, oh, hey, have you tried Slack, right? Like, that's not the way that they work. The way that they work is, okay, well, what other business has used Slack before? Why does Slack address those businesses' pains? And how does that seem to address my pain, right? And the other really big challenge is just every business is unique, right? The thing is, businesses are tackling different niches. They have different business models. They have different ways in which they operate. And so there's not really a one-size-fits-all solution that you can kind of throw out there and hope for businesses to all adopt. You really need to go deep, right? The thing is, if you want your product to win in business to business, you really need to go deep. And there's no way for you to go boil the ocean where you're building deep for every single business that might be in your market. What really makes sense is to go attack a single business and ship them a really deep solution that works. And there are a couple of benefits of doing it in this way, where you're building for a specific business, right? You're building for a specific customer really deeply with your product. You're not building mocks, you're not building prototypes, you're actually building a truly functioning product. And here are the benefits, right? When you focus on a single customer, you're really driving laser focus. It's how do I make sure that they succeed, right? You're really focused on their deep pains. You're not being distracted by, the requests of other customers or from, competitors. You're really just focused on that one customer, right? And when you're building alongside them, you're demonstrating your partnership, you're co-building, right? And that is an incredibly important thing to do as a product manager, is to demonstrate to your customers that you have their back, that you are going to get in there and solve their pains. And that trust eventually helps to build your credibility in the market. And if you really understand how to pilot your product, if you're really going in with the intent of learning and experimenting and understanding how do I take this single use case and get it to scale across more and more and more customers, you will quickly find out what it takes to bring your product to the entire market. You're really using your product to lead your business's growth, right? And of course, if you dive really deep with a customer, the hope is that you create a lot of value, and that value can be captured in a white paper, it can be captured in a case study, in a reference point, and that is incredibly important because, again, businesses rely on evidence to make their decisions when buying new products. And so if you have a really happy reference customer who's willing to take any call from anyone about, oh my gosh, this product that I worked on with Clement just does exactly what I need it to do, let me tell you about how awesome it is far more likely that your other prospects are going to want to buy into your product. But I'm not going to pretend like pilots don't have downsides, right? So there are a couple of things that can trap you if you are not careful about how you pilot with a customer, right? One of the biggest challenges is, when you're so tightly coupled with a customer in where you're both trying to succeed together, it is highly possible that they try to bend your arm into being a custom development shop. Kind of, they send you on all of these, very low value tasks where you're building out screens that don't really apply to anyone else, or workflows, or copy that just doesn't really make sense for anyone else but them. You don't want to be there, right? The thing is, you want to make sure that your experiment, your pilot, is meant to, one, drive massive value for that customer, of course, but two, understand what it takes to get to the next customer, right? You don't want to be stuck with this single customer forever. Your goal is to grow and to be able to capture the rest of the market, right? And one of the challenges is customers who are very savvy, they may understand that that's your goal. And so they might use their pilot status to negotiation advantage. They might say, well, I'm not going to give you references until you ship XYZ that isn't part of your roadmap, but we need it, or else we're not going to give you a reference, right? And so the thing is, if you pick a bad customer to pilot with, it could just sink your entire product, right? They might commit you to building a bunch of stuff that isn't actually strategically advantageous for you. And it could create a really large deviation away from the rest of the market, right? And so I think one of the things, which I'm going to discuss in a little bit, is make sure that you select the right customer to drive a pilot with, right? Don't just pick the first customer who says they're willing to go on this adventure with you, where you're going to be building something together. Be really thoughtful about who you want to pilot with, because that very first customer, you're putting all your eggs in a single basket, right? That's what a pilot is. A pilot is you're putting really deep investment into a single customer and using that to go figure out how to get to the next one. And so you need to be really thoughtful about who am I going to pilot with and how are we going to make that pilot work together. And so again, a pilot is really advantageous in the business to business world because it really lets you understand really deeply what are all of the objections that I might need to overcome to get a business to adopt my product, and how do I move my product on to the next stage, right? And so when you dive that deep with a customer, when you are co-building a product together, you're going to learn about a bunch of stuff. You're going to learn about what their business really truly needs. You're going to learn about how their users actually work alongside your product because you're sitting right next to them every day. You're going to really understand all of the different niches that might exist in the market that you wouldn't understand from kind of a 50,000 foot view, right? You're going to be able to get a lot of really amazing new ideas for products. And you're also going to really be able to understand, well, what are all of the other adjacent problems that I could be tackling, right? And so the point of a pilot, while you want to be able to unlock massive success, even a failed pilot could actually be really valuable because you could learn a bunch of stuff that lets you launch the next pilot, right? And so the key thing to keep in mind about a pilot is that you're basically using your product to iterate very quickly in a very targeted and focused manner so that you can eventually unlock growth for the rest of your business through your product. And so what I want to share with you today is basically an 8-step framework for how to use a product pilot to drive that product market fit, right? And so first I want to go ahead and just lay out all 8 steps for you, and then we're going to go ahead and actually dive into each of the 8. And so first, you're going to want to identify, well, what problem are we trying to solve, right? What market do we think we want to go after? Then within that market, which customer do I want to go after? And then once you have the customer that you're going after, okay, well, what is it that we're trying to solve? What is our hypothesis, right? And then convince them to actually go pilot with you, convince them to actually work alongside you, do the hard work of executing, right? Go ahead and co-build with the customer and win. Then after you've won that single customer, you want to go ahead and convince more customers to pilot with you, repeat that process until you eventually take over the entire market, right? And I've actually had a lot of experiences where piloting is a really fantastic way to go capture an entire market, even though it might look like you're making very, very slow progress because you're only capturing 1 customer, then 2 customers, then 3 customers. Because you're really understanding their pains so deeply, you will start to accelerate much faster than all of your other competitors. And so that is actually a really amazing way to win a market, whereas competitors might build what we call a mile wide and an inch deep, right? They try to build for everyone, but they don't actually solve anything. Whereas you're going an inch wide, but a mile deep. You're really solving a really deep pain. And for every additional inch that you build out, it's going to come with that 1 mile of depth, right? So again, let's go ahead and actually talk about each one of these 8 steps. First, you need to actually understand, well, okay, what are we trying to do with our product, right? The thing is, products, one of the amazing things, the blessings of a product is that because it's all tech, like you can do basically anything you want. So long as you have the imagination to go do it. And the curse is, well, you can do anything. So what are you actually going to do, right? And so the problem is none of your customers are going to tell you to go, solve a particular problem area. They're going to come to you with a bunch of problems. And so you need to decide, well, what is the problem area that I want to go after, right? And so as an example, one of the things that I used to be a CRM product manager for real estate agents. And the thing is, there are many things that I could do for real estate agents. There are, I could help them with marketing. I could help them with communications with their customers, with transaction management, etc. And I have to pick one of these things to focus on. I can't be everything to everyone, right? So what is the problem area that I want to go after, right? And then once I know, okay, well, I want to go after this kind of problem. Now we need to go understand, well, okay, which kinds of customers should we go build with? Right? And so what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is, for example, in business to business, you might have these really large customers who might have very complex requirements. You might have very small customers who have much easier to understand requirements that might be much more implementable, right? And there's a spectrum in between. Well, which one of these do you want to go after, right? And on top of that, a lot of the time within enterprise, there are businesses that can look very similar, but are actually quite different, right? And so, you really want to understand, well, what is their operating model? Kind of what type of customer do I want to work with? Using your existing segmentation, what is the kind of customer that I think is going to unlock the most success? And this really has to pair with the problem area that you selected, right? So again, like let's say that I'm doing stuff for real estate agents specifically on the sales side. well, I shouldn't be working with real estate brokerages that are really focused on downstream transaction management and all of the legal paperwork. I really want to be focusing on brokerages that are really focused on sales, right? And so if that is my problem area, I want to make real estate agents better at selling homes. I shouldn't be going after real estate brokerages that don't employ a lot of real estate agents and use a lot of automation. I really want to go after the folks who are really focused on sales, because that is my problem area, right? So the type of target customer that you decide to work with is very much tightly linked to the problem area that you've decided on. And on top of that, you just want to make sure that they're open to piloting with you, right? And so, sometimes very small organizations might not be able to pilot with you because they're busy fighting fires all day. They're too small to have that overhead to work with you. But the small ones might actually also be the most nimble. They don't have a lot of legacy processes in place. They might be able to work with you very quickly, right? And kind of on the flip side, a really large customer might be really open to a pilot because they have a lot of overhead. They're used to experimentation. Or they might not be. They might have a lot of legacy processes, a legacy culture that makes it very hard to work with them. And so consider how likely it is that this target type of customer is going to want to pilot with you. And so now we've defined the problem that we want to go after and the type of customer that we want to go after within our existing customer base. Now we need to go actually figure out, okay, well, what type of product are we going to build for this type of customer to go attack this problem area? And why do we need to do that? Well, we need to do that because we actually need to pitch to a customer that, hey, you're going to co-build with us in proving out this hypothesis, right? And so you can't go in there and say, hey, we're going to build anything that you want, because that's not really driving a hypothesis, right? Like, what is the thing that you're trying to understand? And so again, as an example, I used to build CRMs for real estate agents. And one of the hypotheses that I had is it is really important for real estate agents to tackle buyer transactions very differently from how they tackle seller transactions, because those two workflows are very different. And that's not necessarily a true hypothesis. That's just a hypothesis that I need to go test. And so I needed to go find a brokerage that was willing to go on this journey with me of, we're going to train our real estate agents to do different things depending on whether they're working with someone who's trying to buy a home versus someone who's trying to sell a home, right? And that kind of leads into step number 4 of, well, now that you have your hypothesis, you need to go and convince a customer to pilot with you, right? And the thing is, what's the most important thing to do is to really tell them how they're going to benefit, right? While, yes, you're trying to benefit by building a pilot, right? Just focusing on what you're going to gain is not going to get them interested. Because again, keep in mind that if a customer is deciding to pilot with you, it is a really large investment of resources on their end. They are spending, subject matter expertise time with you. They're spending operations time with you. They're adding, this new initiative on top of their list. And so you need to demonstrate value to them, right? What is it that they're going to gain? And, a couple of ways in which I found to be really effective in positioning a pilot is, hey, because we're going to be co-building together, you're going to be able to drive the influence of where this product is going to go. You're going to have your needs much better met at a much deeper level than someone who might get our product much later on, right? You're going to be working with some really amazing folks in tech who are really going to dive deep alongside you to understand your problem. And that is why we want you to pilot with us, right? And so really focus on what is the value that they're going to be able to get, right? And also help the customer understand how you're going to step in to minimize risk for them. Because again, they're putting a lot on the line by saying, okay, we're going to shift away some amount of our resources to go do this far-fangled approach of piloting with you, right? How do you minimize that risk, right? There are a couple of things that you can do, right? So for example, as you're building out the product, you want to be the one who's curating training materials for your customers so that they can train their employees on your product. Like, you don't want them to be struggling to come up with that. You want to make sure that you have a really clear timeline of, when are we going to ship what thing by, or, how is it that we're going to work together, right? Really focus on what types of risk does this customer feel and how do you minimize the risk to them, right? No matter what, anytime you propose anything to a customer, whether it is to buy a full-blown product or to do a product pilot or whatever, it's always a question of return on investment, ROI. Return on investment is benefits divided by costs. And so while you can talk to them about all the benefits that they'll get from a pilot, it's also important for you to demonstrate that their costs are going to be low. You're going to absorb a bunch of those costs so that they can benefit and have this return on investment of working alongside you rather than waiting for you to come up with a product on your own, right? So there's that. And so, you've done all of this negotiating, you've done all of this thinking, all of these deep dives, and now you're actually going to go co-build with that customer, right? And I'm just going to be really upfront with you. Sometimes it can take years for a pilot to yield success, right? And so as a real example, one of the products that I built took more than 2 years to go iterate on and refine over and over and over again until that one customer was finally satisfied enough to say, yes, this is the actual thing that I really actually needed, right? And when we took that to market, it unlocked a bunch of other customers very quickly because we actually solved that inch a mile deep. And it had to be a mile deep or else no one was going to take it, right? And so the thing is, when you're co-building with a customer, just be prepared that there are a lot of unknown unknowns, right? Because you don't know what market you're trying to solve yet, right? There's some niche that you're trying to go after. You don't necessarily know how deep your customers' workflows are going to go. And so if you're getting in there to try to help them automate a lot of that workflow or to make a lot of that workflow easier, one of the things that you'll need to do is work through each step of that workflow over and over again until you actually knock out the full-blown workflow from end to end, right? And so it can take a really long time. And so one of the things that I've seen people do is when they launch into a pilot, I think, oh, because I'm building for a single customer, I'm just going to build something really hackily, really non-scalably. It's going to be okay. It's going to be fast. It's going to be cheap. Here's the thing. Pilots are not cheap. They take a lot of your time. They take a lot of your team's time. They take a lot of your customers' time. And so just be ready for that when you are going on this journey with a pilot. But again, being able to demonstrate that you understand this 1 inch a mile deep is incredibly important because that is how you create that credibility for other customers to immediately buy into you, right? So it's going to be painful. It's going to take time, but it's worth it, right? And of course, as you're co-building with the customer, you don't want anyone to lose momentum. You don't want people to lose focus. And so be really relentless with each other, be accountable to one another. Every week, make sure that you're shipping something new. Make sure that you're demonstrating, new ideas, that you're incorporating feedback every week. And your customer can't just be off the hook, right? Like they actually need to give you feedback. And so if you're noticing that they're not clicking around into the product that you just built for them, ask them, hey, we said we were going to pilot this together. I'm trying to unlock value for you. Why is this not a priority? Keep them accountable, right? Because they are helping you to flesh out your product. And if they're not invested, then your product is not going to be able to move forward, right? And so again, it just goes to demonstrate that you need to be really thoughtful about the customer that you select. And you also need to be really thoughtful about how are you going to manage this initiative? Who's accountable for what? What are the timetables that you're running with? And kind of what are the expectations that you'll both hold each other up to before launching into this whole build phase, right? Don't go in and say, oh, don't worry, I'm going to build all this stuff for you. You don't have to engage. Because if they don't engage, you're not going to get the learnings that you need, right? Make sure that they're really, really deeply invested. And you actually want them to be almost kind of noisy. You want them to be telling you over and over again, no, this is wrong. No, this is not the way that I do things. No, this is the type of thing that I need. No, these are the types of pains that I've got, right? Dive deep with them and make them ask you, well, why did you do it that way, right? And then make sure that you're asking them, well, why do you need it that way, right? Really push each other to drive a market-winning product, something that will really unlock huge value for your customers, and your customers' employees, right? Like really dive into what is the thing that will make them win by using your product. And so again, the co-build part is, probably the longest part, and it can seem daunting. But if you do all of your homework up front in steps 1 through 4, you're actually going to be really well positioned. It can actually be quite painless, right? I've had times where I've co-built with a customer. It only took 2 weeks, and we were able to unlock this really new workflow that I was able to ship across hundreds of customers in one shot because it was just really straightforward. And so there are just times when co-builds can take a really long time, and sometimes they can take a really short time. And that just really depends on how well did you do your homework on what problem area are we trying to solve with this product. So you've got that one customer, they're finally live, they finally put all of their users on your product, they're crushing it, right? Like they are doing so much more business now that they're on your product, they're loving it, they're super happy. Well, great. Now you need to actually take your product, and you can't just rest on your laurels. You can't just say, great, we have one happy customer. You want to win the market, right? Like this is all about using your product to lead. You want to use your product to open up more opportunities for your business. And so now work alongside your customer to create collateral, case studies, white papers, reference calls, blog posts, whatever you have, and use those to convince other customers to now jump in to co-build with you, right? And so you want to get other prospects to say, oh, well, I want to try that too. Like I want to take this product that you've already built and I want to see whether it works for me. And you want to remind them that by working alongside you, it's not going to be fully fleshed out. It's not going to do everything that they need, but that you are soliciting really deep feedback from them by co-building with them, right? Then you're going to go take that product, you're going to go put it into customer 2 after they've agreed to co-build with you. And you're basically going to rebuild it, right? Like there's going to be all of these different flows that don't work for them. Because the thing is, you built so deeply for that one customer that you might have hard-coded a bunch of stuff that you didn't realize were hard-coded. There might have been a lot of assumptions about how they work that don't apply to customer number 2. And so this is a really great time for you to actually go re-abstract your product so that's scalable. Now you know, okay, great. Well, there are 2 different business models. And so I need to configure this so that it does different things depending on the operation model, right? And then after you get customer 2 to win, then you do it with customer 3. And after customer 3, you do it with customer 4, etc. And so you just need to make sure that you're ready to go iterate on your product over and over again as you launch into these additional pilots, so that now you're covering an exponentially growing set of use cases. Again, not just doing 1 inch, but maybe 5 inches or a foot, but it's all still a mile deep, right? And so one of the things that, again, you've got your product, your initial customer is really happy. You've built it out for the second customer. They were not so happy. You re-abstracted it so that they could go do everything on your product. And now they're really happy. And now you're taking it to the third customer and you're going to rinse and repeat. You're going to keep doing this over and over again. And that's step number 8, it's the final step. You are going to keep doing this until you win the entire market. And this can actually be done. Like I've seen this happen multiple times in my own career. And it sounds a little bit crazy sometimes. It's like, well, that's kind of weird. You didn't really do market research, right? Like how did you just use a single customer and then use another single customer to win? Well, again, it's because we are focused on depth and not breadth, right? That is what we mean by we're using pilots to create product market fit. The deeper your product is in meeting a market need, the more likely it is that that market is going to be humongous. They're going to come to you and say, I need you to solve this pain because you're the only one that knows how to do it, right? You're trying to find a really amazing market by piloting. And so you're just going to repeat it. And the thing is, of course, you don't want to go one customer by one customer by one customer for eternity. Consider doing something like the Fibonacci sequence where you do first you reach out to one customer, then 2, then 3, then 5, and kind of you expand your set larger and larger and larger until now you win the entire market. And the thing is, again, doing it this way is incredibly helpful because you are baking in all of the years, all of the decades of experience that your customers have in operating their business and baking that directly into your product, right? And once you are known in the market for being someone who is really thoughtful about how to build for industry use cases, you can actually eliminate competitors long-term because no one knows how to do it the way that you know how to do it, right? Like you are so deep with the customers that no one else can penetrate, right? And so you can actually eliminate competitors this way by knowing how to strategically and tactically leverage pilots to identify product market fit and then to go expand your advantage. And so just wrapping up here, again, a pilot is a valuable way to win new learnings, of course. What does it take for me as a business, as a product, to win this customer's business? And to also create these success stories that then create this exponential curve of growth, right? And the thing is, a pilot is a very different way of working, right? Rather than you going out and surveying the market, or rather than you going out and doing this quantitative and qualitative research, you're actually putting all your eggs into a single basket to say, I'm going to do this one thing for this one customer, and we're going to figure out how to make it work. And if it doesn't work, we're going to call it a failure. We're going to learn from it. We're going to go try again, right? And the thing is, product-led growth is all about using your product to identify what market is going to help you win? Like, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Because again, as you go on this, co-build phase, you're going to hit a lot of false starts. There are going to be things that you thought, well, the customer needs this, and the customer says, I actually don't need that. I actually need you to do this other thing. And so it's going to be a little bit of a winding journey, and you should expect that. But that's fantastic because you are finding the market, right? Like, you're using your product in someone's hands where they're actually going to drive business value, and you're using that to actually go find a market. And that is amazing, right? Because again, finding an amazing market is way more important than crafting a great product, because a great product in a terrible market is not going to win, right? So you really need to understand what is the market, and a pilot is a really great way to do that. And again, a really amazing product manager, as they work through these pilots, they're going to get really good at identifying what is the problem area we want to go after, what is a good customer that I want to work with to go attack this problem area, and what kinds of solutions we think we want to go in with before you actually go and launch that pilot, because doing more of that homework upfront means that your pilot's going to be way more successful downstream. And so again, I'm Clement, really excited to have been speaking about product-led growth by using pilots to drive product market fit. Thanks so much.